What is up, guys? Bobgar here, and no video series this week. Partly because I'm a little busier with work, and also partly because I decided to have some friends and coworkers over to do a cube draft today. Cube is actually probably my favorite format, Modern being close second. So, yep, I did a cube. This is my cube deck all laid out with all the basic lands removed, and I'm going to go through it step by step just to kind of show you what my draft looked like and the choices I made and why I made them. Not necessarily all good choices, but I went 2-0 in the matches I played. We didn't end up having time for another one. Mine took longer than anybody else's, so I think that was maybe the nature of my deck a little bit. And we played a multiplayer game at the end, which I definitely did not win, although I did get to play Kingmaker, which was kind of fun. It was a very interesting multiplayer game. Maybe I'll talk about it later. So yeah, let me start by looking through my deck. Alright, one thing I made sure to do is draft quite a few non-basic lands, as you can see here. So I've kind of lined them up by what they are. So there's, first off, I was white, blue, red. So there's two fetches, white, red fetch and a white, blue fetch, and that allowed me to basically get all of my colors with these two fetches. And then I ran 4 fetch lands, all of which can grab these two fetches if they need to. White, green, which is a little weird since obviously I'm not green, but it can grab either the white, blue or the white, red fetch. The red white fetch, which obviously can just get either of the basics I might want, as well as either the two duals. Blue white, again, can get white or blue, which I play both of, and either of those two duals. And then blue red is probably the most important one because I'm mostly a blue red deck. That can get me either of those two colors. So that's most of my non-basic land base. Then in addition to that, I ran a lot of blue because blue is my heaviest color. I did also run 2 tri-lands, which I put in my cube. I like them. I think a lot of people might not like them quite as much as me. This one tapped for green, white, and blue, which obviously I only use the white and blue, but even though it comes into play tapped, the fixing I thought was worth it. And likewise, Jungle Shrine taps for red and white, not blue. So it's not all 3 of my colors, but it's 2 of them, and I thought that was good enough. Basically, good enough to warrant putting in the deck. So that was my lane base. I was pretty happy with that. I put a lot of effort into making sure the lane base was at least reasonable. And the thing I struggled with most when drafting was trying to get decent 1-drops for the things my deck wanted to do. I had a few red 1-drops that I cut because they were very aggressive. I mean, that's what red 1-drops usually are. They might have been fine filler, but I ended up picking up a Ancestral Visions pretty late, and I thought that would be a pretty good card for this kind of combo-y deck as a 1-drop. This is kind of like a mix between combo, mid-range, control-ish thing. It's running like 2 or 3 different, maybe not, combo might not be the right word, but heavy synergy themes. So I took Ancestral Vision, figured that would help that, and it gives me a good 1-drop. Likewise, Brainstorm, a very good card in general. Even without the fetches, I think Brainstorm is very good, but with fetches it becomes even better because you can shuffle all the stuff you didn't want from your hand to the bottom of your library. Not to the bottom, into your library, so you don't draw it again. And Swords to Plowshares, which is probably the best removal in the whole cube. I actually picked this up instead of one of the combo cards I could have gotten. I think instead of Kiki-Jiki, and I knew I needed 1-drops, and I knew this was the best one I was going to see. So I grabbed that up, even despite there being cards that felt potentially better in my deck. I just felt like that was really important. And I also ran a lot of Mana Rocks, so Everflowing Chalice, not necessarily a 2-drop. You can play it for 0 occasionally if you want to. Usually you'll play it for at least 2, so it taps for 1 mana. You can obviously tap for way more later if you want it to. We don't have anything super big to ramp into, so usually this is at the 2-drop slot. Is it Signet? It's the best Signet for us. Blue-red is the most important color set, and we happened to into it, so I picked it up as soon as I could. Gruul Signet's not nearly as good, but does give us red, and Signets are just always pretty good for ramp. And then Mindstone is another pretty nice one for us to get, because we can just get rid of it late game and get a card out of it. So a lot of value off of Mindstone. Ramps you early, and you can get rid of it when you don't need it anymore, so I like Mindstone a lot. And then the other 2-drops, I was all very happy with my 2-drop selection. Stoneforge Mystic, probably the most powerful 2-drop in the deck. Lets us fetch for an equipment. We only run one other equipment. I'll pan over to it just for a second so you can see. It is Battery Skull, one of the best equipments ever printed. And you can also pay 2 mana and put equipment from your hand into play. So when you play this out, you tutor your equipment, and then the turn after it's out, you can put that equipment into play at instant speed for 2 mana, which is just crazy. Really, really good. So I like Stoneforge Mystic a lot. Moving up, we got Jace of Rin's Prodigy. This card is really, really good. I just like looting effects in general in this kind of format because it helps you get to the cards you want very well. So I rate looters very highly. We don't have too many targets for his Planeswalker side minus, and I actually never ended up getting him to his Planeswalker side. 1 or 2 times I played him, he just got murdered right away, but I was still pretty happy with the pickup, and Looter Core did work for me. 1/1 Shadow, and whenever he deals damage to a player, draw 1, discard 1, so just, again, another Looter. I really like Looter Core. I'm a super big fan. Alright, so that was my 2-drop slot. I don't have any really good graveyard synergies, so the looters mostly just draw me to my combo pieces, but I am a pretty combo-heavy, synergistic-heavy deck. And that brings us to our first real combo in Tinker. So Tinker, for those that don't know, it's a 3-mana sorcery, 2 colorless and a blue. It reads, at the time you play Tinker, sacrifice an artifact. Search your library for an artifact card and put that artifact into play. Shuffle your library afterwards. So I didn't end up with the best Tinker payoffs, but I will paint over real quick so you can see what we're going to get to eventually. Sundering Titan, Wormcoil, and Batterskull, you can grab with it too if you really want to. All 3 of our kind of biggest things are artifacts, and we obviously had all of those mana rocks that we can sack to get it out too. And if we need to on turn 3, we can even just put in an Ever-Flowing Chalice for 0, and then just tinker it away right away. Things like that. So you do have to sack something, but if you're just sacking a mana rock, sacking a mana rock to get a Wormcoil Engine is usually a pretty good deal for 3 mana. Other 3 drops that we got, Compulsive Research, again, draw 3, discard 2 unless you discard a land. Pretty good filtering. A lot of times we were able to discard a land, so a lot of times it was just a draw 2 with some filtering. Felt really good. And then we didn't have very much removal. We got the best one in Swords to Plowshares, and we got Brimstone Volley. Not great. 3 mana, deal 3 damage is not exactly what you would call an amazing card. Sometimes it deals 5 though, which is pretty nice. Can either finish off somebody if you end up in a grindy matchup, or you more often than not can just kill a relatively big creature for 5 damage. Okay, next up, Dak Faden, one of my favorite Planeswalkers. He wasn't nearly as good as I had hoped, I think because I got so many of those mana rocks, not that many other people took them or played them. I think he's really good in situations where we can do that. I did end up stealing a Grafted War Gear and slapping it on my Looter Core in one game, and that was pretty powerful. But overall, he was mostly a draw 2, discard 2, which felt good, although I did use him to accidentally deck myself one game, so hit or miss, although a very good card, certainly. Reflecting Mage is one of my favorite cards, just a super good tempo play. He didn't end up being very good in this deck, probably cuttable. Possible I should have put in some other stuff at the slot, maybe another removal spell instead, but he was still decent. I never felt bad using him, it just wasn't tremendous. I did get to put another card that I'll talk about in a second, which is over here, Splinter Twin, on him, and that was pretty sweet. Every turn I got to bounce one of my opponent's creatures. I did end up losing that game though, I think, so not the best, but still pretty cool. And then the Pestermite, Flash Flying 2/1 for 3. When it comes into play, you can tap or untap a target permanent. Pretty strong, and obviously the big reason to put it in is the card I just talked about, our 4-drop Splinter Twin. Splinter Twin is an enchant creature, and when you have this enchantment on that creature, you can tap it, make a copy of it, and that copy has haste, and exile it at the beginning of the next end step. Well, if you copy Pestermite, you can, if you enchant Pestermite with Splinter Twin, use it to copy itself, you can untap the original Pestermite that has Splinter Twin on it, and you can make infinite Pestermites and then swing in for infinite damage. So, very good in this deck. This is obviously, it's a nice 2-card combo. There's more pieces to it if you find them. Like, I could have found Kiki Jiki, I could have found Deceiver Exarch, and I didn't get those, and there's a bunch of other combo cards. Zealous Conscripts, Restoration Angel doesn't work with Splinter Twin, but it works with Kiki Jiki. They're all kind of basically the same combo. And I only had 2 pieces, which is pretty light for this kind of deck, but as you've seen, I have a lot of search, and I don't really need them to be good. Splinter Twin works with other things, like I said, it works pretty well with Reflector Mage. It works pretty well with some other cards that I have too. We'll see like a Mole Drifter later on. Mole Drifter is another card that it works pretty well with. Sundering Titan's another one that's okay with it. And Pestermite's not amazing, but it's fine as a 2/1 flyer for 3 that taps down something an opponent has, like helps us get in for a little bit of damage or whatever it needs to do. So that was my 3-drop slot. Pretty happy. Like I said, Reflecting Mage didn't end up being that good. Dak Faden I thought could have been better, but I don't think it's a bad card. And the 4 drops. So I had Factor Fiction, which is historically a pretty amazing card. You reveal 5, your opponent splits them into 2 piles, and you choose a pile and put it into your hand, the other one goes to the graveyard. I don't know if I actually resolved this one at any point which was meaningful. There might not have been a good include for my deck just because I got a little behind sometimes. It would have been better if I could find a creature wipe or something to put in the 4-drop slot, I think. But it wasn't terrible. I don't feel bad about putting it in, but I don't think it was actually relevant in any of the games I played. Next up, Thopter Spy Network. I'm continually impressed by this card. I don't think it's good in many decks, but I actually really like it in the kind of tinkery decks. A lot of times you play it turn 4 for 4 mana, which is a lot, but then you like swing in with your Batter Skull and instantly, or the Worm Coil Engine you tinkered out, and you just instantly get to draw a card for free. Putting in a 1/1 every turn is actually pretty powerful in this kind of format. And the draw card is not amazing, but it's not terrible. I think for 4 mana, it's good in the Artifact Synergy deck. I always feel surprised that it makes my decks, because I feel like a lot of people don't even think it's powerful enough to be in Cube, but it consistently both makes my decks and performs well in them, so I don't know what to say. It performed well in almost every game I put it out. Splinter, we already talked about, has a lot of good combos in the deck. Awesome card, I love it. I happened to get a foil one like a month before they banned it, right when Modern Masters 2015 was released. I'm sure it's worth like 10 cents now. And then I had Ral Zarek up here. He's not the best Planeswalker. I just wanted some level of Planeswalker grindiness. He's another removal spell. You can put him out and instantly nug something for 3 damage, slow down the aggro decks. Tap and untap is not totally relevant to us, although it's not the best in this deck. And then his ultimate would be great if we ever got it off, but we never got to that point. Flip 5 coins, take an extra turn for every coin that comes up heads. So on average, you get 2.5 extra turns. Pretty sweet. And then we get into the payoff cards, the 5-drops. A Mulldrifter, just because it's one of my favorite cards ever printed. 2/2 for 5. When it comes into play, you draw 2 cards. You can invoke it, so you can basically play it as a Divination, which we never ended up doing, but you can, just to draw 2 cards, which is really not bad either, but better if you can play him for fair and get in a 2/2 flyer. Batter Skull, I was super impressed with. I mean, I always am, but worked out really well this time. I made sure to leave up 3 mana for its ability a lot of the time, and that really paid off. It dodged removal spells a couple times with that. Being able to put it in for 2 mana off of Stoneforge Mystic is great, and it just has living weapons, so basically it's an artifact that comes in as a 4/4 lifelink vigilance. If they kill the germ token that's on it, you can just bounce it to your hand and replay it. Obviously, you can equip it to other stuff too. And yeah, it's super fun card, super powerful. I liked it a lot. Sundering Titan, the only time I played it and it was at all meaningful was in the multiplayer game at the very end. Other than that, the problem is we're a 3-color deck, and most of the other decks around the table ended up being 2 colors, I think. So usually it was like I can destroy 1 to 2 of your lands and 3 of mine, so it just never ended up being very worth it. You would think that given that we have artifact mana, it could have been, but just didn't end up in that case, so never really played it. But it is a pretty sweet card, just a 7/10 for 8 that destroys 1 of every basic land type when it enters or leaves the battlefield. So pretty sweet. And we had a Worm Coil, and Worm Coil I'm always impressed with. Really good. 6/6 Death Touch lifelink for 6. We can obviously tinker for it, just like we can tinker for Sundering Titan. And when it dies, you get a 3/3 Worm token that has lifelink and a 3/3 Worm token that has Death Touch. So it's almost like it splits it in half. Yeah, and this guy finished out a bunch of games for us too. So that was the deck. I don't know if I would have changed much about it. I think, given the cards I drafted, this was about the way to build the deck that I wanted. I did have some sideboard cards, and I'll look at them real quick. I was pretty excited about a lot of these, and I just didn't get a chance to put them in. I thought about Gargadon as a 1-drop, get it at a 7/9 eventually, and as long as you can survive till then, it's really powerful. I felt like we were a little threat light, so I seriously considered putting this one in. This was actually my last cut, and it's quite possible it should have just been in over Reflector Mage or over Factor Fiction or something like that, just because it's a little bit more proactive and puts us on a path to deal with the aggressive decks, which are what this deck has a lot of problems with earlier. Also gives us something to do when they're killing our stuff. So there's that one. This was another one that was a really hard cut. Might have been better in our deck than Sundering Titan. We never ended up playing Sundering Titan, like I said, and Inferno Titan is just super good. Also combos pretty well with Splinter Twin if you happen to get both of those out, since you can tap it and deal 3 damage instantly to your opponent. And then swing in for another 3, so I don't know, super good card. Thought about this one, just didn't quite make the cut. I didn't want to have too much high-end stuff, and I already had the Sundering Titan and the Worm Coil I wanted in for the Tinker. You know, it sucks to Tinker and not have a target, so I wanted at least 2, and that meant this guy kind of got the shaft. But it's possible it should have been in over either Sundering Titan or Factor Fiction or something, because it would be very good, and there were a couple games I kind of ran out of threats. Blade Splicer is a super grindy one. If I had more of the blink effects like Flicker Wisp and Venser. If I had Venser, this would have been an obvious include, but I didn't, so I was like, yeah, the combos with Splinter Twin is a pretty good 3-drop, but I wasn't sure if it was worth it. In retrospect, I probably would have put this in over Reflector Mage, I guess. But I don't know. The Reflector Mage was pretty good occasionally, too, so maybe not. But yeah, I like Blade Splicer a lot. Almost made the cut. And then the 2 last cards, I really wanted to splash black. I took Ashiok pretty early, and I love Ashiok. Commonly online called Splashiok, because people love to splash it so much. But yeah, black was a little too hard given my mana base to make work, so I had to give it the cut. But I do love a Splashiok. And then the last card that I cut was Vampiric Tutor. Yeah, if I could have found a way to go black, I would have been good. Vampiric Tutor would have made a lot of these combos that I have a lot more reliable, and I took it pretty early just because it was so good, even though I knew it wasn't in my colors. But I was like, well, I think it was pack 2, and I was like, I could still maybe splash black. I wasn't sure I was white yet. I only had like 1 or 2 white cards, so I considered ending up in black. It just didn't end up happening, so that's the reason that one got cut. And then there's a bunch of other stuff. Char was also a pretty late cut in consideration just because I needed a little bit of removal. Armageddon, I just didn't think would be good in my deck. I had too much high end, although it did feel like it could be pretty devastating to other people too, and I did have some ramp. I just didn't think I needed any more card draw, so I didn't think Brain Geyser was very good. Didn't have enough mountains to make Fire Blast work. And then the 2 red 1-drops were both considerations, Soulscar Mage and Zergo Bellstriker. Not quite enough removal for Soulscar Mage, and just, we don't really want to be an aggro deck. We don't really want Zergo Bellstriker. And then 2 green cards at the end. Basically, nobody was in green, so these were our final picks for pack 2 and 3, I believe. And that's what I drafted. I thought it worked pretty well. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.
Hey guys, BobGar here. I just really wanted to quickly say, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you enjoy my content in general and would like to see more of it, subscribe. I'll be coming out with more content in the future. And please leave me comments and let me know what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, both in terms of production and in terms of my play and my deck building and all that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys next time.